GameStop employees of Reddit, what are some of your horror stories? Former employee. 2 wonderful stories. 1. Older lady brings in a bag. She looks like an addict and she wants to sell her weed. I put my hand in the bag and it's soaking wet, cat piss. She was furious I wouldn't take it. From that day forward, made every customer take all trades out of bags themselves. 2. My first store was long and I had a kid and mom in back. Mom wasn't paying attention at all. 8-year-old walking around. Gets really quiet. Then mom rushes the kid out of the store. Go back there and he took a sheet on the floor. Watch the tape. Mom finds him squatting. Lets him finish then takes him out. Also, when you get done alphabetizing the Wii games and notice your hands are covered in mystery sticky stuff from all of the filthy children handling the cases. That was pretty gross. I used to be the ASM of a GameStop but nothing really out of the ordinary happened there. Just a lot of lingerers. When I was the manager of a local game store though, there was definitely a lot of wild stories. The one that sticks out the most is this old dude we called Psycho Sexy who would come in every Monday morning. Try to sell me or whoever was working bootleg porn DVDs. He would tell us they were good for busting fat as nuts to and that he'd sell them to us super cheap. Every Monday he'd come in. Open up his duffel bag of bootleg porn. Get refused then leave and come back the following Monday. This went on for almost 3 years. The guy who comes in with obviously stolen stuff but can't be called out on it so he just keeps it up. Did you end up taking the stuff from him or did he leave eventually? Have to accept it. Can't prove it was stolen there on the spot. But he stopped coming in. Not like he was making a fortune doing it, but my guess is he felt like he'd burned himself there, coming in 8 months straight with 5 PS4s. 5 Xbox Ones. Loads of games of all types. A few DS's, always missing the charger. Never was an employee. But on the night Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, I was waiting in line and this kid rode up in the parking lot and starting bragging about how he got the first copy and held his copy out the window. After about 10-15 seconds of bragging and holding it outside the window, another kid ran up from behind the car, yanked the copy from his hand, and ran into the woods behind the GameStop. They never found the kid who took it, and the kid in the car starting crying immediately. Worked at GS a long time ago but I'll never forget this one. One night a guy brought in a really dusty and dirty GameCube wanting cash of course. I asked him if it worked and he said he didn't know because he hadn't played it in a long time. I told him that we have to check every console and when I turned it on and opened the lip about 100 roaches came running out all over the counter. I got scolded by management for helping a woman for 30 minutes. She bought 12 games and was looking for good recommendations for her son who was on the spectrum. I found every game on her list and a few more to surprise him. Those surprise games were Okami and Katamari Damacy. She was overjoyed that her son was going to have lots of good games to play. Why were they mad over such a large sale? Oh, because they weren't ducking used. Duck that store. That woman wanted to make sure her son was happy and I was tasked to do so. I know I did a good job and you guys can close shop. Edit. I probably won't be able to reply to everyone. Thanks for all the positive comments. One time a woman screamed at me because her kid was tearing open a toy before paying for it and I kindly told him to wait a little bit. She seemed on the fence on whether she wanted to buy the toy or not for her kid. So you know I wasn't glad that her kid was already ripping it open. She then proceeded to scream at me for being really awful with kids. A horrible person. Bad at my job. etc. Also she wanted to complain to the manager if I ever talked to her kid like that again. She then angrily paid and walked out of the store. Also people tinkering modding their console and then trying to return it because it doesn't work anymore and angrily insisting on having it bought that way and messed up. Had a couple come in to return a Sesame Street video game and a controller. They had a receipt from over a year ago. The game was scratched to hell. And the controller was full of dried soda. They said it didn't work anymore, shocker, and were furious when I wouldn't give them their money back. Like standing there screaming at me. I was the manager, so I had no one else there to back me up. It was crazy. The kid was bawling. The lady was swearing like a syphilitic sailor, and the husband couldn't finish his sentence. Pretty sure they were both super high too. So that was fun. When the PS2 came out, I was assistant manager, and my manager would sell them out of the back room at a markup. Such a snake. I took the demos box home with a copy of Halo before the system launched one night and had a 4-player all-night party. One of our other local stores had someone dig through the outside wall and steal everything out of their back room. I worked in a store where theft was a very common occurrence. But this one dude, he nabbed one of the cheap controllers off the wall from the back of the store, puts it in his backpack, then comes over to the counter. He reaches across the counter, opens a drawer and steals a brand new game out of the drawer, takes it away from the register, opens it, waits in line, trades the game in for 25 bucks. Then he asks me to look for something in one of the bottom drawers, and he steals back the game he just traded in a second time. After that, he immediately left the store before I could notice he was gone. I got to give him credit. He had some slick gonads. So many other sketchy things too. But this one I just had to laugh at. I was hired to help open a new store. A store where the manager was male. And everyone he hired, female. He was definitely trying to cultivate a hot GameStop kind of situation. Word got around. And we had people coming in to visit ours when they had other stores much closer to where they lived. They didn't really buy anything. They kind of just lurked around for hours at a time, chatting the staff up. There were days when they'd wait for us to close up. That was kind of scary. I was eventually let go for not being friendly enough, which was apparently about 3 months before the manager had a total screaming meltdown during store hours. Declared himself High Archangel, threw some shit at a customer, and was later picked up by an ambulance. So I guess my horror story is the whole damn job. I was an assistant manager when one of the Madden games came out. 04. Maybe? We were doing a big midnight opening for it, and everybody was having a great time waiting for the game, which we were picking up from another store about 30 miles away. Around 11 o'clock. After people had been waiting for 2 hours after the mall closed, I got a phone call. The game wasn't coming. I almost broke down, sitting behind the register, dreading the thought of telling everybody that they just wasted their time. To make matters worse, another store within walking distance of us got their games. I just wanted to die that night. I am so grateful that our customers took it well and didn't get too angry. Today, a customer brings in probably the grossest PlayStation 4 I've ever seen. I think, oh no, please don't have roaches. I hold it on end and tap it against the floor and nothing falls out. Nor is there and rustling of things moving. No telltale signs. I take it in. My coworker decides he needs to find out why it is so dirty before cleaning it, and opens it up. Inside is the world's first deluxe roach hotel. Managed to keep the horde contained in the box the console was going in. That console is gone now. Why are people gross? Worked there years ago during 2006 to 2009ish. An adult guy came in and traded in a bunch of GameCube and PS2 games. One of them was a Mary-Kate and Ashley game. The cases were clean, but we always wiped them down. When my coworker got to the Encanda game, I guess the Windex caused some sort of reaction because something came back to life and smeared all over the case. We threw the case away, lol. Another guy would come in and only buy Leisure Suit Larry games and the Dead or Alive volleyball games. We used to play the console testing TV from the back room, lol. It was a fun job, but some of the regulars. I have a lot more, lol. Not an employee, but I was at GameStop in a not so great area a while back, and there was a Spanish Karen there losing her shit. Apparently she wanted to return COD Black Ops 3 because it was too violent for her little kid. But since you can't return brand new opened video games, they wouldn't give her the money back. She was yelling and screaming at them to take it back, this and that. The insane part is she said that she would be returned with backup and all this shit. She was literally threatening violence while saying sh's against it in the game. Karen logic transcends language and culture. Not a GameStop employee. But I worked at a Subway that was in the same parking lot as the GameStop. After working at that Subway, I became friends with some of the managers at that GameStop. I would give them free food. They would give me discounts on games. Anyways, one day one of the managers comes in after his shift and I ask him how his day went. He said that it went fine until the last few hours of his shift. Apparently some guy came in asking to return a game that he got from a different game store, not GameStop, and asked for a full refund. When the manager said that the guy couldn't return it because it was from a different store, the guy went apit and started yelling and destroying stuff in the store. Then the man pulled out a knife and started going to town on a cardboard cutout. After doing that, the dude left without saying anything to anyone. Manager says that the dude was probably high drunk when it happened. Roach-filled systems. Once someone bought a Gamma Cube and brought it back because the heat caused the eggs to hatch. Had someone try to trade in a Roach EPS3. Still had roaches in my store even though I turned it away. And sexual harassment from male customers in general. I have so many. So didn't happen to me, but a GameStop manager at an urban store told me about the time someone traded in his box and the next day he came back, pointed his gum at him, and demanded to have his box back. Apparently he forgot his Drugas were hidden inside this box that he desperately needed back. He got his system back. Another time a GameStop manager got fired because he thought it would be okay to hire his own security for the store. The guy he hired also had a permit for a concealed firearm. So basically there was an unauthorized and untrained armed guard inside the store to stop robberies. Luckily the situation was handled before and issues. Cockroaches. When you work at an urban store you will have the pleasure of having cockroach and bedbug infestations from the systems that are traded in. You can also hear their little bodies sizzling when we test out the systems. Not really a horror story, but the best I have. I was working the midnight release of Destiny 1 and mostly walking around and chatting. It was a fun night. Of course I didn't have any hours for a few days after that. But when I came back in, the SGA warned me that a guy had been coming in and asking about me. He apparently even asked my female assistant manager where the female worker was. She said me and he said no. The cute one then tried to get her number. Lo and behold, he called that night. In the middle of trying to check out a line of people, this man, who I talked to for maybe 5 minutes, called to talk and ask me out. I've never hung up on someone so fast before. Not GameStop but Game in the UK. Not really a horror story, more of a funny one. A woman was trading in her son's old games and we had to check the discs for scratches etc. Opened up a case for a game to see the DVD name TILF. Underneath it said Teachers I Like to Duck. I didn't show, but I think she saw because she went slightly red. I just passed her back the case and said this one has the wrong game in. Bet her son got shouted at when she went home. As soon as she left I had to go upstairs and just cry my eyes out, hahaha. Finally, I'm not going to go into a shit ton of detail because I simply don't feel like it, but imagine a 2016-year-old GameStop. Dude clearly cracked the duck out. He was maybe 5 feet 2 inches. Walks into my store with a crossbow complete with arrows. This short man seriously brought in some monstrous weaponry that doubled his size and asked me if I could keep it on my back counter while he shopped. Naturally I told him no. I watched him waddle back outside, climb into what I assumed was his own car from the passenger side window because neither of the doors worked apparently, and drive off. We printed a picture of him from our DVR and kept it to look at for future laughs.